Mothers like that too.
Tonight is May 24th, 1991, at the Fountain Grove Inn. Mother is here sharing her evening with us all. So here we go.
We saw downtown. It was really the town, almost the town bum, you know.
Christina?
Favorite too. He had lots of personality. He came we were having tea and something. Cake, I guess. A little shop, and he came in. And Lindsay wouldn't she knows him. Lindsay talked to
Christina?
him free. And Lindsay wouldn't even speak to me. All he wanted was a smile from her.
Oh.
He really wanted it.
Oh, she felt, well, maybe afraid of him.
Not at all.
No?
Oh, she wouldn't be afraid of anybody or anything. She's very outgoing.
Who are you talking about?
Lindsay and the colored man there, where Mimi and I were having a bite of food one afternoon. And Lindsay was ignoring this man. Well, we got home the next day. I said, darling, funny that you didn't smile or speak to that man that we saw, because he wanted you to. She said, I don't know what happened to my mind, Mimi. It just went away. I don't know. I just couldn't find my mind. And then a little later she said, oh, now I've got my mind back. But her imagination, well, and little tall tales, you know, she imagines so many things. And her father will say, I'm not sure that's right. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, I don't know. But it wasn't right. So he'll have to contend with that later. But now, with their imagination working, it's probably still interesting. But she keeps them both
How many kids were in your family when you were growing up? How many brothers and sisters? I don't remember.
5.
Oh, and you were the oldest? Or?
One of the youngest. There was Donald, Kenneth, Janet, Miriam, and David. There were twins in between too, but one died at birth and the other soon after. But there would have been 7. But that's the only reason my father really wanted to get married, to have children. And Mother was 15 years younger. She was a kindergarten teacher in Burlington, Iowa. She didn't have any intention of staying in Burlington. She was engaged to a New York lawyer.
Oh.
But my father changed her mind. He said, oh no, you don't want to go to New York and marry him. You want to stay right here and have a flock of children.
So they lived in Iowa? Were you raised in Iowa?
Sure, Burlington, Iowa. Yeah.
They stayed there?
40,000 friendly people.
Mm-hmm.
We never hugged.
She's just learning to hug now.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Di's trying to teach me. She sent me a book on it.
Did you read it?
No.
You learn well, though. Just by having it sit in your bookshelf.
It's much easier to have it demonstrated than to read the printed word. Don't you think?
A couple years ago when she was out, I gave her a few hugs. And I think you went home and tried it on some of your neighbors, but it didn't feel too comfortable. Didn't you say something?
Oh, we went through it for a little while, but then it somehow or other stopped.
But now you're getting re-energized with knowing how to do it again.
Of course.
Show me.
I don't think the time's appropriate.
That's not natural. You can't force things.
Oh, okay.
No, it has to be a very natural thing, doesn't it, Christina?
Gotta work your way to the grades like Christina does.
My father's family does not hug.
No,
Your father and your mother didn't.
No.
neither one.
My father hugs us. And you know how things pass down through generations? He's more demonstrative than his parents. And then, of course, we are more than they. And Madison and Zane will just be kissing and hugging everybody. But he's not that way, and that's okay. You know. So, but they're also from the Midwest. originally.
Is that the Iowa way?
Kind of a Midwestern.
Oh, I think so. Now, I had Janet and her husband lived in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I was down there 2 or 3 times. Everybody hugs. Everybody loves everybody. And
So Aunt Janet hugged a lot.
well, she didn't hug me. maybe,
Well,
maybe she hugged her friends. I don't know. But I went down. Russell died, and I've never seen such an outpouring of love and affection. And they taught at a college. Russell was head of the music department. Janet taught French and math.
Now, what college was that?
St. Mary's in Raleigh. But the president of the college and his wife and all the teachers and all the students and everybody flocked over. And always, as a rule, with a dish in hand, a dish of food of some sort. Or a bottle of booze. They all like to drink. They drank 1 or 2 before dinner. And Janet was quite a partaker.
Oh, really? I didn't realize.
Oh, yes, and they were life masters in bridge. And they, before the final scores would come in, they would really drink their whiskey.
Now, Janet had a parrot, didn't she, that stayed at Nana's? I never quite understood why.
Well, they got a parrot, and Russell taught him certain bars and symphonies.
Oh no.
Yes,
The
they did.
parrot?
What did, all
And
he ever
do you
said
know,
was Polly.
well, we had him for about 30, 35 years. And another thing, you see, my maiden name was Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
And the phone would ring, and the parrot would say, Mrs. Robinson, Mrs. Robinson. It was just at that time that Mrs. Robinson song was coming out.
Oh, in the
Yeah.
60s? Yeah.
And it was so cute. He would imitate. Well, he knew the phone. Mother would go and answer the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So he was fairly smart.
Well,
And when did you move to Chicago? You moved to Chicago in...
Yeah, I never stayed in Burlington much after college.
And then you went to Chicago just for a vacation or something, didn't you?
Well, after college, I went to Europe, came back. Teaching jobs were all filled. It was about October. So my family didn't know what they were going to do with me. So I went over to the University of Chicago to work on my master's in French. And I was there about a year. I did everything, completed all courses, but no thesis.
mm.
By that time, I was having a pretty good time.
Like
And,
what? What were you
well,
doing?
Jim was involved in it.
And you met him, what, on the stairs or
She
something?
was starting to swing.
Right, Town Hall.
The guy with the squinty eyes?
Yeah.
Piercing.
Those
squinting.
piercing eyes. Now, I don't know if either one of you detected that. Jim had very piercing eyes.
Yeah.
He would, as I say, to die. He kind of undressed you.
Oh, I see.
You understand, Christina?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He kind of, this
So
little.
no wonder life became more interesting.
Getting undressed every day.
Mm-hmm.
To a certain degree.
Well, he also played the trumpet, too. He was a musician
He was a
Oh.
musician.
who undressed you
He
at the time.
actually earned his way through the University of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
His father was a banker, and I never did understand, never asked how come he was the oldest of the 2 children. But he learned to play the trumpet, so he was in a theater down the south side of Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
trumpeted away, and the first date I ever had with him was, come down and listen to my trumpet. And I don't know, I think he had to stay there until 10:30 or 11 at night. But we'd have a few dinner dates, and then I don't know. I just saw him quite a bit. I think we played tennis together, and my girl I lived with was working on her master's in history, Louise Selman, who still lives in L.A. Has lived there for years, same house, married. I think he was an official with Arthur Anderson, but met him there in Chicago. And then when Jim went, he went to Harvard the first year, alone, without me. He gave me a little Harvard guard, all in pearls. That was our engagement.
You were pinned.
I was pinned.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, I got it. You can have it.
I never even saw it.
You still have it. Wow.
Oh, of course. I have 3.
Now, did he graduate
Who else's did you get?
Did he
Huh?
give?
from all these different men or from Jim?
Oh, not for Jim.
Oh.
No,
Opportunist.
it was just almost a fluke that I married Jim.
Oh.
Really?
Why is that?
Well, he went away the first year. And I started going with Norval Wright, who was a Northwestern medic student, who I met through my roommate. They'd both gone to Ohio State together. And so Louise knew him, and Louise met her husband through me. And she'd been married to him for ages. They knew Jim. In fact, I went home for a little vacation, and so when I came back, Louise said, you know, while you were away, I dated kind of an interesting man. I said, who was it? She said his name was Jim. I said, what was his last name? Elworth. But he said to her, well, we can go out for dinner, but I have a regular girl, and she happens to be home on vacation right now. So I won't see you anymore. And here Louise and I ended up living together. We were living, so it was strange. But anyway, he went to Harvard, and I was going with Orville, and it really got serious.
Norval?
Orville.
Orville Wright.
Right.
Just like the
Not
airplane.
the Orville, right?
Not Dayton, but from Dayton, Ohio, too.
Oh.
And he was lots of fun. But anyway, Jim came back, and he, as the summer went on, and I was getting all these messages from Orville, who had gone home to Dayton, Jim said, there are only 2 choices that you have. And at 23, I was willing to listen. You know, 23, you're willing to listen. And I had a couple of friends in Chicago who were getting married. Susanna Packham from Evanston. And, well, anyway, I think thought I was ready, 23. And still, I didn't want to write that thesis. So, he said, either we must get married or you must give up Orville Wright next year. I said, well, if you think I'm going to give him up, you're crazy. Well, then we better arrange to get married and you go back to Cambridge with me. So we got a wedding deal going in Burlington, Iowa. About 150 people.
Whoa, goodness.
Mother lined it all up. My little brother, who had a beautiful voice, he and 3 other of his friends, a quartet, stood at the base of a circular stairway and sang, Ah, Sweet Mystery.
Pretty corny, huh?
Pretty corny, right? Very corny. But it was sweet at the time, Bob.
Yeah, right.
But that was that was it. And then when, well, we were there for 2 years, and then back in Chicago,
He's a Harvard graduate then.
so was my second.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Hmm.
Bob was a much,
He was also a lawyer, is that right?
oh,
or?
yeah,
Oh, he was too.
very fine lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
very fine.
The Burlington Railroad? What, he was a lawyer for the railroad, was he? No?
Utility company, and John Deere and Company.
Oh,
All the big companies there in Moline,
Moline, yeah.
where we
John
moved
Deere.
to.
Yeah.
And he had his own big law firm. He was quite a person.
How soon after you were married to Jim did Diane come along?
Well, we had returned to Chicago, and his father, who was a marvelous man, George Elworth, when I got married, they said, "Are you marrying Jim or his